Got a Panasonic VCR. I don't know the model of this one because the sticker is missing. It's a later model Hifi VHS machine that came in as totally dead. So we're gonna take this one apart and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it and get this one working. And I'll let you in on a little secret here. It has more than one problem, as we'll find out once I get the power working. I have here a Panasonic VCR. I don't know the model of this one because the label on the back is missing, but it's a recent vintage, I guess more recent vintage. Complaint on this one is it's dead, although it seems to be turning on now. So let's see if this one does anything. Oh, okay. It's turning on, but it's not accepting a tape. Well, that would explain. That would explain a lot. Okay, yeah, this one does have a problem then. I guess I'm gonna have to take it apart and see why it's not working. Look down into the top of it. Plug it in. So none of the motors are attempting to turn. Get the voltmeter out and see if there's any power. Obviously there's power because the clock display is lighting up and the power light here is coming on. So the power supply is running, but we must be either missing a voltage or something is wrong. So put my ground. Just check some voltages here. 31 volts. 16 volts, so power supply, that part's okay. We have 5 volts, 16 volts. Nothing here, nothing there. Volts. Nothing on this one. I guess I'm going to have to pull the mechanism out on this one. I suspect there's a problem in the power supply, but as to what it is, could be a capacitor that's bad. Let's pull the bottom off it, or pull the board out, I should say. These ones here, you got to take the front off. I've seen more VCRs in the last few weeks. It's like I've got an SLVR 1000 that has come in that I have to order. I got to get the blue gear for it. I don't have one. But I've got a blue gear problem on an SLVR 1000 that I'll probably shoot a video on that anyway, just in case there's something else I need to look at on it. So to open these ones up, you got a bunch of screws to take out to hold the mechanism in, and there's also one on the bottom that needs to come out. That's down here, I believe. Yeah, there's one right there. Otherwise, the board will be stuck in. It's a ground, and there's 2 more screws here. And then the chassis should lift out. You know, it really amazes me as to how simple they got these mechanisms compared to the early ones that were full of gears and levers and slides. And the modern VCR was so simple and yet complex at the same time. But mechanically wise, these ones were really simple, and they didn't actually give that many problems like some of the earlier ones that had a lot more parts in them. Okay, unit's out now. Let's just check some more voltages around here. B plus capacitor, I believe, is one of these 2. That's my voltages here. Is this the 12 or 5 volt supply? 15 volts. Okay, that's one of them. And I believe it goes through this coil here. Choke, 15 volts. 15 volts. Got a fuse, 0.5. What about the other side of the fuse? Okay, I got nothing. Nothing on this fuse. This is a pico fuse. That's the 5 volt pico fuse there. So we have a problem here. 15 volts here. It should be connected to the fuse on this side. Or make it there some way. Let's check out the bottom. No continuity between C1013 and the fuse. If I go across the fuse, we've got continuity, so the fuse is good. But no continuity here between the filter and the fuse itself. I'm just going to bridge over the connection here. For the record, it appeared to be a hairline crack around the pad that the pico fuse was on, because as soon as I put the soldering iron on it, the pad started to move. So now we have continuity. Power the unit back up. Oh, okay. We just saw the motors kick. That's a good sign. $15 volts is back on the circuit protector fuse here. Connect up the monitor. See whether this thing's going to work. Okay, blue screen on the monitor now. Gotta be kind of careful because this thing's, the bottom of this is live.
Don't have to be in the middle of the room.
Have a picture. Oh. Well, that's interesting.
Stereo everywhere.
Okay. It's shut down. I don't know if it's my light that's causing it. I don't think so. I'm just kind of trying to shield the tape end sensors from my light.
What if you could show it?
So we still have a problem with this thing. Now, the guy that brought it to me said it didn't play. He just said it didn't work. But he hadn't used it for a while. Again, I'm starting to see VCRs come out of the woodwork because everybody's wanting to play their old Disney tapes for the grandchildren. So I'm starting to feel old because I'm starting to see, you know, people that are my age that are wanting to haul out tapes that they had for their kids when their kids were growing up in the 80s, and now they're hauling out the tapes for the grandchildren. And they're pulling VCRs out of the closet that have been stored in the attic or the basement for, you know, 15, 20 years, and they're hooking these things up, and they're not working. So, play, and
it tells us
it's stopping. So, this thing has a problem. So one problem solved, and we have another problem. This may have been the original problem too, because he said when he brought it to me, he said he thought it had a problem when he put it away, but when he hauled it out, it didn't work at all. So what happened here, I think it was just a little hairline crack on the bottom of this pico fuse, and it was losing power. Anyway, now we have a second problem to resolve, and this one might require using my scope. If we look at the symptom,
and as we speak, displays across.
It goes for 2 seconds and stops. That time it didn't unload. What about the other modes? Will it work in another mode? I'm just looking for which buttons are which. Fast forward. We'll work on fast forward. Rewind. Or is it fast forward? Maybe that one's fast forward. I think I have a real table problem, or a detection problem. It'll go on rewind. Now it's not going very fast because this tape is right near the beginning. Will it stop? Okay, so it stops at the end of the tape, which it's supposed to. I'm just doing this to shield the, there's a tape end sensor here. And I don't think my light's going to affect it, but sometimes bright lights will affect them. Fast forward, and it shuts down. So it shuts down on fast forward, and it shuts down on play. VCRs use rotation sensors. Here's the supply reel rotation sensor. Here's the take-up reel rotation sensor. They use rotation sensors to determine whether the tape reel is turning or not. And basically what it is there's a couple different types. There are types that use a reflective material, and they use an LED and a phototransistor, and the bottom of the reel table has a silver reflective material that forms stripes that reflect or don't reflect, or usually squares, but reflect or don't reflect the signal, the light from the LED. Others have like a tooth base, slots in it, and the phototransistor and LED shine across over a gap, and then as the reel table rotates, it will break the light beam as it turns. So we should see a pulse on, I think it's usually either the emitter or the collector, but one of the two. We should see a pulse as the reel rotates that we can watch on a scope and determine whether we've got a signal there or not. What can happen is the sensor can go bad, or you can have a bad connection somewhere between here and the microprocessor. But what it's doing is it's counting that pulse train. It's also used to determine whereabouts on the tape you are, how far in on the tape, because it detects the speed difference between one reel and the other. So it could be a problem with the rotation sensors. It's going to be fun to try and work on this thing because of the board. There's nothing to hold it in place while I'm working on it. So I'm going to have to kind of hold this down while I'm trying to test. But this is the type of test that we would definitely put a scope on it to see if we see the rise and fall for the voltage. It could be a sensor, say it could be a connection problem. My bet is it could be the sensor, or it could even be it could be anything. It could be dirt. It could be dirt in the optical sensor that's causing it, or it could be the reel table. We know the reel table's turning because if it wasn't, it would eat the tape. Okay, I had to hook this up. I can't operate it upside down because the tape won't thread, so I had to actually hook a little wire onto the I think it was a collector. It's the emitter or the collector. Oh, I'll look at it in a minute. Anyway, this is what we should see. This is the supply side. So let's look at the supply side first, and then we'll look at the take-up. So here's the supply side. So when I start the unit up in play, you'll see the rise and the fall. That's indicating that the sensor is detecting. Now we'll take a look at the take-up sensor. I'm just going to move my little test lead to the collector of the take-up sensor on this side. I'm just using a little piece of solder to give me a little test point to clip onto. Clip my scope probe onto that. Oh, that was probably not very good. I'll redo that. It's going to break off. That's what we do when we need a temporary test point. Just melt a little bit of solder and stick it on there and let it stick. Learned that trick years ago. And it's easy to take that off when you're done. We clip on. Okay, now let's go back and look at the scope, and we'll look at the take-up side and see if I see the same waveform. So here's playback. As you can see, the reel is turning, but there's no indication. So we have a problem with this take-up sensor. It's either the sensor's bad itself or something's blocking the light and it's not reacting. I don't know if I've got one of these sensors. I'll have to go and look through my scrap bin and see if I've got another sensor. So first we'll remove the tape. Remove power. The mechanism on these ones just kind of lifts out of place. Okay, mode switch. Here's the optical sensors for the tape end sensors. Tape end and tape start. These are the little sensors here. And I don't think I've got one of these ones, but I'm curious as to whether maybe it's just dirt that's in between the LED and the photo transistor. So let's just try cleaning the space between the two of them and see whether I get any signal. Well, this machine does look pretty clean inside, though. It doesn't look like it's been, it doesn't look like it's been in a smoky environment. But let's see if I can clean between here. Well, I'll have to pull the tape hub off if I can. And we'll look underneath the tape hub. It holds this thing in place. I think it's just held in place by this the tape brake. If I take the tape brake back, I should be able to lift this out. Man, these things sure got cheap in the end, didn't they? These VCRs, man, oh man, they're so thin. The mechanisms, so flimsy. Plastic gears. What the hell's holding that in place? Oh, it's hitting against the bottom of the cassette housing. There we go. So that's what operates it. It's just these little tabs that make or break the light. I don't see anything wrong here. Oh, come on. There, it goes back in like that. It probably wouldn't hurt just to clean the mode switch while I've got this thing open. I remember the cheapest VCR I ever bought, brand new. I think I paid $89 for it at the Source or Radio Shack, about 2002.
If I can get it apart, we have to actually remove it. Oh, there it is. There, it's apart. Okay, doesn't look to be too bad. Actually, it's got I think it's got grease in it.
I should do a service on that machine too,
While
because
I'm at it.
it has a front loader problem where if I put a light tape in it, rejects it. And it's done it since day one. I've just never got around to fixing it.
I'll put a little bit of deoxit in this thing. I'm just going to use the deoxit D100 liquid. This will clean the contacts and keep them clean. I use the tip to kind of scratch through. I don't put much pressure, but as I'm applying some deoxit, I just rub the contacts. That way it will help to break through any oxidation that may be forming on the contacts. Leave a bit of this behind to protect the contacts in the future. mode switch fits into a little keyway on the cam gear up here, so make sure it's pointing the correct direction, otherwise there's going to be a problem. Let's try and put this thing back together and see whether I've made any difference, whether cleaning this up has solved the problem or not, or whether it's still going to shut down. We'll find out pretty quick. It's either going to work or it's not going to work, right? You know, as bad as these machines are, they're still better than those Funais that you couldn't remove the chassis on at all because the connectors or the wires are too short. At least is when you can flip the mechanism open to work on it. Get the mode switch realigned there. Okay, I think everything's plugged in. Race head is plugged in. There is it. Yeah, is it plugged in? No. The race head has to plug in over here. There it is now. I think it's plugged in. And the capsule motor is plugged in. Let's power this up and see whether I've made any progress. Is it going to still shut down or is it going to play? Well, that's a good sign. It's got a bit of noise.
Welcome to the Bose Network Preview Channel, the place to be to find out what's in the lineup. Tune in to Bose.
I'll try different tape in this one. I'll try my tape and see how mine plays. My tape seems to play okay. Check this out. Oh, the question is it going to stop? Well, to answer that question, no, it's not going to stop, because it would have stopped already if it was. So I'm going to say that this one's fixed. There must have been some dirt or something lodged in the optical sensor that was preventing the optical sensor from providing feedback to the microcontroller. I think that may have been probably a secondary problem. The main problem was the power supply, and maybe just while it was being stored, something got in there. It could have been some grease. You notice that the real tables themselves had grease on them, so it could have been some grease that got into that slot and blocked the light beam. But it certainly is working now. So it's time to put this one together, and then we'll give it a final test and get it out of here. And yes, I will clean the heads. These machines always went together quite easily. You just basically drop the whole machine all in at once. To give you an idea how quick I could put one of these things together, I'll let the camera roll while I do it. As I say, it's just literally just a couple of screws to hold this thing together. This is how all VCRs should have been made. Easy to service. Front faceplate just snaps on. Top cover And of course the screw in the base, the ground screw. One last test. I know, I didn't clean the heads, trust me. I'll pop the top off it and clean the heads before sending it out, but it's fixed. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.